Hi YouTube. So I've already done all the zeroing in on this thing, or pretty darn close to it, but I'll just describe what I've done here. So I have a 1/2 or 3/4 inch carbide end mill in the jaws of my 3-jaw chuck. My start dial indicator is clamped to the cast iron table on my drill press, and up on a 1, 2, 3 block so that it clears the jaws of the 3-jaw chuck. So I have never had this set up this good before. Last time I did this, let's get in on that dial indicator a little bit. Yeah, adjust up a little bit better. Here we go. Come on, baby. Cooperate with Daddy here. Yeah. I want to get centered on there. Well, that's close. At least you can see the dial indicator. Alright, so this is the best I've ever had this set up. I took everything back apart again, and because I noticed a little bit of movement between the table and the top of the 3 jaws, or the 3 XYZ axis base. So I fixed that, and now there's absolutely zero movement between the two, but it's also made the rotating mechanism a little stiffer. But there's also absolutely no movement between those two parts in any kind of a wobbly, laterally like direction. Anyway, so because I did that, now I have to zero all this mess back in again. So my dial indicator is indicating the shaft on this 3/4 inch end mill, and I'm looking on the needle on there for direction of movement. So if the needle moves negative, that means that the shaft is moving that way, away from me. If the needle moves positive, that means it's moving towards me. Initially, when I set this thing up, it was not as close to this, which is nearly perfect now. So the needle swing was really significant. At that point, I didn't even care where zero was on it. All I looked for was like the peak of direction in the positive, in the clockwise direction of the needle, or positive. In other words, where the whole assembly was coming towards me the most. And then at that point, then I would tap everything back that away. You know, some random amount, you know, like look at the needle and watch it drop like, you know, like 10 or 15 thousandths, because it was like, you know, way off. And then, you know, next time around, I'd watch how far the needle swung from negative to positive. You know, if it made multiple rotations, I didn't care. I was just going to tap it back a lot. You know, probably like 10 or 20 thousandths. But you know, now I'm down to the point where the needle just moves like 1.5 thousandths. So I would tap much, much less now, because I only want to make like, you know, a 0.5 thousandth movement. So let's watch the needle and the table run around in circles. So watch that black mark on there. That's going to be the high spot, or where I think it is anyway. Right now the needle's on 0. Okay, it swings a little tiny bit negative, 0.5 plus. Yeah, it went to 0.5 plus for a second there. But I don't know what that is. Like a little bit of movement in the gear assembly inside here, something like that. So 0.5 plus again, it just seems to do that. So anyway, that stayed basically from 0 to 0.5 to plus 0.5 the entire way around. Do another rotation. So when it's about 0.4 minus right there. Where it really should be low is exactly opposite of that black mark. And now it's back at 0 at that spot. And coming back around to that spot, it's swinging a little bit positive. There we go. There's our +5 right at that black mark. And now we're back down to -5, which is really odd that it is. Yeah, so my black mark is here. And so that's where it's at +5. So there's some anomaly, oddity, whatever you want to call it, in the rotating assembly. That's where it has to be. And then the -5 is here. They should be exactly opposite of each other if this was run out, you know, lobing in this whole assembly. And they're not. They're literally almost 90 degrees apart. So that's something else. It's some little bit of jiggery, not quite perfection in the rotary table. But still, I'm going from my low of like -0.5 to +5 worth of run out in this thing, and that's the entire movement, and then they're all right here in this one little sector, which is weird. I've never had this set up this good before. This is I would have to say, as close to perfection as I've ever had it in any way, shape, or form, and it's because I keep tweaking things and taking little tiny bits of movement out of it, making it a little bit better, a little bit better, a little bit better. And now it's like definitely really good. So now that I know what my run out is, you know that it's super close, I'm going to take these 4 nuts in here and super carefully just give them a little tiny snug. And I don't want that needle to move every time I tighten one. So that's bad. So I'm giving that one a little snug. And go this one. Give that a little snug. Needle's still not moved, which is good. The next one. Give that one a little snug. I got a little bit of movement there, I think. But that's still really tiny. Last nut. That one's snug. There we go. So that one rotated back. Well, that's good. Can't ask for a better deal than that. All right, let's give it another spin around. So right now I'm about 0.3 minus. Oops, that helps. So yeah, it just completely racked the whole assembly by bumping my dial indicator. Let me get that back to 0 again. There we go. Pretty close. There we go. Now I'm at 0. Give her a spin. Okay. There is 1 plus 1.25-ish. So I probably knocked it out of dead on. Back down to 0. Yeah, minus 0.5, minus 1. Yeah, I definitely knocked it out around by tightening my screws. So get up to that positive 1.5 again. That's the spot. There it is. That's where I'm going to knock it down. So I'm going to push this whole assembly that way, just a smidge. So hitting on the adapter plate again. So now I have my screws tighter. It's harder to knock on it. Can't just tap. Gotta hit a little bit harder. But it still moves. There we go. So I'm just a little bit over plus 1. I'm like at plus 0.25 or so. Let's give it another spin. Okay. Not much movement there. Down to minus 1. And plus 1 right there. So I got to tap it down a little bit more. Right here. There we go. Just a little bit high of 0 rather. Staying at 1. Down to 0. Minus 1. Back up to plus 1. Okay, so this is the spot that I need to tap down a little bit. I want it to just go to 0 because I'm going to plus and minus 1 now. There we go. There's 0. Give her another kick. Okay, I'm up. Sitting at 0. Minus 1, minus 1.5. Yep, there was my high spot right there. So plus 0.5 is my high spot. So I'm you know, basically 2 thou out. So I'm going to give this a tap down to 0. You know, I'm making just little tiny movements out. You know, so small that I can't even see them. I'm totally dependent on the dial indicator. Okay, so I'm back down to 0 again. Give it another spin. Anyway, this is how you zero the thing in. It just takes these little tiny steps to finally get to 0 where there's no run out, no wobble in the system.